Good morning. Today, I would like to talk about being vulnerable. What does it mean to be vulnerable? Sometimes I'm not even so sure myself, but last night I took a little hape, and in my solar plexus, I could just feel so much stuck energy that it hurt, like I wanted to roll over and just curl up in a ball. And so when I asked the universe, what is this feeling in my solar plexus? It was like a protective wall that I had put up probably since my childhood. And this wall has held people out, it has stopped me from standing in my power, and it has prevented me from being vulnerable. So today, I guess, I'm gonna try to be vulnerable with you and tell my story. I grew up in a very small town in southern Maine called Mechanic Falls. 2,500 people, everybody knew everybody. And I think I was around 6, maybe 7. One of the kids in the neighborhood brought us to his house and introduced us to his uncle. Well, this uncle had a fetish for children. He was like, man, those kids look good. And being 6 or 7, we had no idea, but he molested us. And to keep molesting us, he would bribe us with money. So from then on, I grew up with a shame of holding on to money. I would spend it as fast as I could because I was like, I associated money with being molested and shameful, and what I thought was shameful at the time. And so, later when I was 12 years old, we were watching this show called Unsolved Mysteries with my mom, and these kids were being molested. She was like, did that guy ever touch you? And I was like, he sure did. And I started crying, and good news is he was still alive. So we were able to go to court and put him in jail. Well, after that happened, the police and stuff were like, oh, well, you should probably go see a counselor for this. And we're like, oh, we don't need counseling, but we'll go. And my whole life, even though I'm attracted to women, I had this haunting thought that maybe I'm gay, right? I would hear this every once in a while. Even though I wasn't attracted to men, I would hear it. And I would tell my partner about it, and she would just get upset. I'd be like, look, I don't know why it's there, it's just happening. So eventually I'm like vulnerable with my brother who's going through a rough time as well. So I was like, look, I'll share something with you. And I let him know, I'm like, hey, I also have some haunting thoughts, brother. This is one of them. And he was like, oh, you don't know where that comes from? I was like, no, I have no idea. He was like, when we went to go to that counselor when we were 12, she had us tell her the story of being molested. And she was like, oh, well, since you're molested by a dude, that makes you gay. And I was like, wow, that's intense. Wasn't expecting that one coming. And so that's why we stopped going, because we're like, why would we go to this counselor that's calling us little children gay because we were molested? Well, that was a weight off my shoulders. So I grew up being a little different than the other kids. And, I hung around with the goth punk crowd, and people would make fun of us for the way we dressed. But I was just expressing myself then. And these experiences all helped me shape and grow to become the best me I can be. It gave me more compassion towards people, that also wanted to be different. For people, I had zits all over my face when I was a kid, so I have compassion for the people that had to go through what I went through. And So when I turned 21, I started drinking pretty heavily. I worked in the restaurant industry, and I did that for 13, 14 years. And this is drinking probably 5 days a week, just going out with everybody after work, sometimes by myself. But I thought I just enjoyed drinking. Turns out I was just numbing my feelings. And that was the best way I knew how, you know? Then, 3 years ago, I used to ride a motorcycle. And at this point in my life, I had pretty much almost stopped drinking. And I ate pretty healthy. I started an exercise routine. I started developing a relationship with the divine. But my journey wasn't going fast enough. So one morning I go to get on my motorcycle and go pick up some bananas before I go to work. I'm driving down the street and a truck turns left into me. And he runs over my chest and my back. And then I'm on the ground and I'm remembering, oh, I'm alive. I'm underneath the truck. I start to crawl out, and somehow he takes that cue to drive forward or backwards. I'm not sure which direction he went, but I was underneath the middle, so another 2 sets of tires crushed my pelvis. Well, that put me in a hospital for 3 weeks to a month, and they did a 6-level thoracic fusion and put in some metal rods in my pelvis to hold it back together on both sides. Well, that turned out to be very traumatizing. To this day, I still experience a significant level of pain, which, as you can imagine, I've done everything to try to move out of it, from 21-day water fasts to Reiki to healing hands to theta healing to massage to raw keto diets. I imagine there's more. Oh, I'd spent 40 days in the wilderness alone in the Georgia mountains to reconnect with myself and the divine. And while these were amazing experiences, I know they're all leading me to one place: to love and accept myself as I am, even with the pain, which has become one of my greatest teachers. It's not only teaching me to have compassion for others that have gone through similar things, but compassion towards myself. It's teaching me how to stay present in my body, because ever since I was a kid, through these experiences, why would I want to be in my body? This has also led to trauma in my relationships, as in when I would have sex with a woman, if I wasn't drunk, I wouldn't last very long. And again, this stems back to me being molested. You know, the faster I could orgasm, the faster the experience was over. And so I held on to this pattern into my adult life. And to this day, it's still something I'm working on. Just crossing a street here. Since then, I've studied multiple spiritual practices. I started a men's group in town for men that have gone through trauma and sexual abuse. And I've started working with men one-on-one, which has been very successful, you know, to watch men release the disempowering beliefs and the trauma stuck in their systems. It's almost liberating. You feel so much better. The one guy I worked with, he had stomach problems where he was holding on to resentment towards his family. And after a couple sessions of working together, his stomach problems disappeared. So this is me being vulnerable with you today. The biggest lesson I'm learning is to love myself, have compassion for myself, and honor my feelings, to express how I'm feeling. To me, feeling is one of the most powerful tools we have for healing. When we stop numbing ourselves with the TV, the phones, the junk food, the addictions to alcohol or narcotics, anything that we stopped having moderation for in our lives, sugar, we start to begin to be present with ourselves and feel whatever we need to feel. Sometimes this is sadness, anger, shame, guilt, but the truth is, we never did anything wrong. One of the things I've come to realize is shame is something that we feel when we believe someone else's point of view. When someone says, this shouldn't have happened to you. And now I'm like, oh, this shouldn't have happened to me. I shouldn't have been molested. I shouldn't have drank alcohol. And now I believe them, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And so now I hold on to this pain inside my body. But it's not true. When we say things shouldn't have happened to somebody, we're telling them their experience wasn't okay. And yes, it is horrible when these sort of experiences happen. But there's another way to talking to people about these. And it's without shaming them and telling them something shouldn't have happened. To me, I found it in my own life that everything that's happened to me, not only have I created, but it served me. Getting run over by a truck helped me get in touch with myself, with the divine being who I am, to remember that I am God and so is everybody else. It's amazing that when I was molested, it helped me develop compassion, for myself and others. It helped me become funnier, as a way to, even though I was trying to ignore what happened, but it helped develop another part of me that wouldn't have happened without it. And so just know today that it's okay to be vulnerable, because when we share our stories, it can help inspire someone else that went through the same thing, that may be going through it right now and saying, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Because suicide was on my mind many days from my life experiences. From the pain, I was like, I just can't take it anymore. And to know that I can get through it, I know that others can too. I love you. Thank you for listening.